everyone who's here. And right. So, hi everyone. Welcome to Design Thinking London. It's our meetup. Thank you for joining. Tonight we are hosting Silvia Barbero, who will be talking about how to tackle complexity. She will introduce the concept of design thinking, especially in terms of the circular economy. We are super happy to be running this session and to see many of you here tonight. And as usual, if there are any technology glitches or any small things, please bear with us and we'll do our best to run the session as smoothly as possible. But let's start with a brief introduction to our meetup. So for who's new to this meetup, we are Design Thinking London. We have been running events for the past few years, and our intention is to create a space for design thinkers at any level that can come and share their practice. They can learn from each other. They can feel free to bring their opinions in a shared and safe environment. So we are Carmen and Luisella. We both work in the service design area as currently, and we co-host and coordinate these events outside our working hours, really. Why we do this? Because we are both passionate about the topic and we want to share the methods and the practices with our community. So we can find, you can find us in various social media platforms, and since actually since the pandemic, really, we also have a YouTube channel where we uploaded the past talks that we had there. So feel free to check it out and see if you have lost some events or if you missed some events before, just check it out and see and look at the recording. This event, as I said, is recorded and we will post it in the YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks, probably. And please let us know if you prefer us not to include you, or if you are going to share your screen and your camera and you don't want to be on screen. Just let us know and we'll edit it just before posting it on our channel on YouTube. We are always looking at hosting people, and we know that many of you have like a lot of things that you're working on and lots of ideas and practices. So if you have anything that you want to share with us and you want to share with our community, please feel free to reach out, get in contact, and we will be happy to schedule a call and then have you as a speaker and play the topic that you would like to share with us and with our community. So just as a reminder, please mute yourself during the presentation and unmute if you want to ask any questions after the talk. If you prefer typing and you don't want to be on camera and you don't want to talk, it's completely fine. Just type your questions within the chat, or we also have a Slido. There is a code here, and Carmen is going to post a link in the chat right now, so you can post the questions there or upvote other people's questions as you prefer. So now, without any further ado, we'll introduce our speaker. So Silvia, thank you for being here. So Silvia is an associate professor at Politecnico di Torino and visiting professor at Lund University in Sweden. Among other amazing things, she funded the Systemic Design Lab at the Politecnico of Turin. And since 2018, she has been elected president of the Systemic Design Association in Norway. She's author of books on eco-design, as well as scientific articles and proceedings. So I could go on and on with introducing herself, but I'll pass her the mic to start her talk because we all look forward to hearing what she will be sharing with us tonight. So a round of virtual applause while actually I stop sharing and I will make her sharing.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy about that occasion. And yeah, I would like to share the experience that we are doing, not only in Politecnico di Torino in Italy, but also with the International Association of Systemic Design, that is a non-profit association worldwide with a very diverse board that take balance of different geographical aspect and yeah, gender balance and so on. So you know, all the community in systemic design is around that association. It is a pretty new discipline. So it is useful for us, and it is a mix of academics and practitioners. So it is really useful to have a confrontation every year, every time that we have the General Assembly, and the most important event that we are organizing every year is the Related System Thinking and Design Symposium. We are this year at the 12th edition. It will be in Washington, D.C. this year. And the main organizer will be the Georgetown University in Washington, of course. And this year we are trying to evolve a little bit the format, again, thanks to the lesson learned.
Got to find a way into.
Sorry, Serena, if you can mute yourself. Thank you so much. So Luisella said before that, yeah, the hybrid event was a sort of lesson learned from the pandemic. So also for RSD 12, we are doing a certain hybrid mode with local hubs. So, for example, in UK, we will have an hub in Labrador University. And of course, one hub in Turin. So for all the month of October, we will have different hubs all around the world, and then the final event in Washington, the 17, 18, 19 of October. But if you see the website, you will have all the detail about that symposium, international symposium. And you are more than welcome to participate, of course. So we are also collaborating with the Design Council, that usually is one of our partners. So for example, for the hub that I'm organizing in Turin, we are collaborating with the Design Council. And it will be the first day also of the festival that they are organizing in more or less in the same days. So yeah, that is more or less the context where I'm working on, and why I'm so passionate and about systemic design, because it is, I find, a good method to face the challenges that nowadays we are facing, and what we call the wicked problems. So to navigate, and I use that word navigating because often the complexity should be embraced. And as a designer, often we are so we try to define everything and to plan everything, but in the complexity, often you should also just leave it and embrace it, and not force some action in one direction or in another. So how was the starting point of the systemic design approach? So it comes from other theories, and it is strictly connected, the system thinking and the complexity theories, because they help to understand and to manage the complexity. But then we merge it with the other approaches more related to the design in order really to have the tool and the methods to plan that complexity and to serve somehow the complexity. So the mix of these two main topics, so the complexity theories and the multiple design approaches, converge in the systemic design. So we can address with the systemic design the complexity issues related to the social, economic and environmental aspect that, of course, we are facing right now. And we should approach the complexity through a very holistic way, in order to see not the single element as a single element itself, isolated, but as a network, and can see the relation between the elements. We often, thanks to the cybernetic theories, what is the second order effects. So looking at the elements has always connected, but not only connected, have the ability to see the system as a whole, rather than focusing just on a single element. So we should understand that a linear way to act and have a reactive way to understand the cause and effect of all the process is not anymore useful, because the complexity is a net and the multiple effect that we can have in the environment and in the different situations. So we should go through a way that is more systemic and adaptive. So our approach was born thanks to a professor at my university, that is Luigi Bistagnino, now is retired, but he was the founder of the master in the systemic design in Politecnico di Torino in early at the beginning of the century, let me say. So it was the first master, 2 years master on systemic design. And even if also after 20 years old, more than 20 years old, we can say that it is an unicum in the worldwide panorama. We have a lot of master in systemic design, but a program with 2 years of training in systemic design is still an exception in the educational path. But now it starts to be understood and requested. What is more important that for us that we are teaching to our students is that they can find a job at the marketplace. So what we are doing is understand not only the single object, but understand the process and the system around it. So we are looking and understanding and designing of course, the product at the end, but also the system and the process itself, looking at all the flows of matter, energy, and information that stay behind certain objects that we have. And especially we look at the output of the process, because we want that the entropic process can imitate the nature, where the nature never have the waste. So in the same way, also the industrial process should not have waste. So all the output that we have in an industrial process can be used and as input for other company, not necessarily in the same field. And yeah, as the nature teach us, often the waste are metabolized by other natural rain. So in the same way, also with the industry, the waste of an industry can be processed by other companies, also in different sectors. Then later on, we will see a specific one example, or yeah, some example that make this approach more clear for you. So the systemic design is based on 5 principles. The first one is what I mentioned before. So the first pillar is that the output of a process, of a system, can be input for another one, and it generates the relation in the system. And if you want, the relation are generate the system itself. And another pillar is the fact that a design like this is autopoietic. It comes from a Greek word that means a self-sufficient and a system able to co-evolve with the environment and with the context. So looking at a system that work in that way, with the management of the different flows of material, energy, and information, can co-evolve in the time when some context situation can change. The system is able to be adaptive to the different situation and can survive to the different situation. Often because it is related to the fact that usually we define how to use an output, as different input for different enterprises. That guarantees us to make this pillar of the autopoietic. That means that we should look at a certain territory. We cannot export a system design for a certain territory, for a certain context in another one, like it is. Every territory, every context have a different solution in that sense. Of course, we can have certain part of the process can be a lesson learned that we can use for other contexts, but then the solutions that you can find for a certain system, a certain process, should fit the condition of a certain territory. So, for example, I did a quite famous project here in Italy with the process of bean. A typical bean of an area in the northern part of territory that is a protected bean. And then, of course, for my work, I will disseminate it as much as possible at international level. So I presented it in many conferences, And often other people ask me why we cannot export it in Spain or in Mexico. We have a lot of bean, we can do the same. Yes, of course, part of it, because the context is different. If I find a solution for Piedmont region, where this bean is made, for example, to produce the packaging with the cellulose of the plant of the bean, because there is a company that produces bioplastic with that cellulose. Probably that company doesn't exist in another country or in another context. So we should find the right solution for the context where we are. So that is the meaning of act locally, and understand where we are putting our solution and get value from the territory that we have. Of course, pushing some innovation and maybe asking for some other innovation in a certain territory, but it should be connected with the know-how of a territory, with the social acceptance of it, and so on. And the last pillar is, let me say, an evolution. Probably you have read the last book of Don Norman. That is related to the humanity-centered design. So we are designing not anymore for the relation man and object, but for the relation among the people. So we try to solve the problem that are really related to the social inclusion and be inclusive to the different people that work in a certain context, work and live. I mean, it is, of course, a connection among all the elements. So we should think that we should provide an answer to the real needs of people and not think to suggest needs that maybe are not so fundamental for the life of people. So what we are doing with that kind of approach is to shift from a linear production model that is take, make, and dispose, so the linear model that I think that you know very well, towards a more systemic production level that is quite close to the circular economy. But as you can see from the schema, it is not circular, again, because it is not included in the same field or in the same company. It is a net of different company, and you create, if you want, it is an evolution of what in the past was the industrial symbiosis, the cluster theory, and so on. So we create a net of companies that work together and that are more in collaboration more than in competition among them. To do this, of course, the designer are the facilitator and can drive that kind of change. But with the complexity, we need, of course, the help of other disciplines. So usually when I'm teaching in my class, the systemic design methodology and how to apply it in real context, usually I involve companies from the context to make the students really work on real case studies. I work with other colleagues from other disciplines. The design, the systemic design is the course that make the project feasible and complex. But of course, we have the support of the economy. So a teacher that help us to understand the economic feasibility of this project. We usually ask the balance sheet of the company, the last 2-3 balance sheet of the company, in order to understand the investment and so on. We collaborate with the engineer to understand the environmental sustainability of the solution that we can create. And usually they go in a vertical way and find a solution, but often we need a more horizontal way to see the different solution. And the last one, but not least, all the humanity. We work a lot with the history because we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and knowing what was happening in the past can help to innovate and to keep the tradition as a learning way to see also what can happen in the future. And it is, of course, even if the systemic design is a pretty young discipline, it is important to understand the context and how we get to that point. What are our father in that sense? So how we can apply the systemic design? I can show you some tools and methods that we use. So we organize the systemic design methodology in 4 steps. For each step, we have a set of method and tools that support the design process. So those are the 4 steps of the methodology that are based, and let me say, cross with the double diamond that for sure you know it very well. So we have divergent and convergent phase in all the process. So now I'm going to describe the single step with a light theory part and with one example. So you can follow with a real example with a company that work with us. So you can follow the different step and what it means in the evolution of the project. So the first step is of course, all these steps are connected, and you have many feedback loop among those steps. So again, we try to simplify it, but it is a complex system itself. So you have a lot of iteration among the different steps. So the first one is understanding the complexity. So the first things that we are doing is an holistic diagnosis. The holistic diagnosis have 2 levels. One level is related to the territory where we are working with, and the other level is the company level. Why we call it holistic and why diagnosis? Holistic because it is a picture of the state of the art of a certain context. We define the border of the context, and it is very broad. We consider, even if we are working, for example, with a sanitary company, it is not strictly related to that sector. It is related to the demography, to the cultural aspect, industrial part, the education, the ritual that maybe can be part of that territory, and so on. So it is a very broad picture of the state of the art. And it helps us to understand what are the actors, the different elements in the system, and the flows, again, of matter, energy, and information. And at the end of the holistic diagnosis, we obtain a complexity map. So it is a multiple level approach, because we have these different elements that we should take in consideration. And at the beginning, they seems disconnected, but thanks to the complexity map, you can create the relation among all the elements. So it is divided in 3 steps, again, or 3 different methods that we have, so that we call it X. So the I is related how what is our main goal. So we are able to define the boundary and define our territory and our productive sector, and adapt the tool that we can use. The C stands for collection. So we collect all the data through a desk and field research in order to obtain both qualitative and quantitative data. And the last one is the visualization. So the sharing, because it is a process that usually we do it with different stakeholders. So it is a co-design. We start with the co-design process. So having a complexity map, visualizing that huge amount of data, help us to use the same language, because one aspect that is crucial is the fact that with the systemic design, with the complexity, you are working with very different people, different background. You need other disciplines, but what we miss is a same language. And the visual language with the complexity map is a good tool to do it. So with that step, we are zooming in and zooming out about the context and the company, or the detail of the single process. So I will show you a video about the example of what it means to do a holistic diagnosis of a territory and of a company, that in that case, the name is Dual San Italy.
Can we go? 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone.
Hello and welcome to our brief chat about holistic analysis. I'm Sofia.
And I am Sergio, and we are part of Team 5. Today we're going to explore the metropolitan area of Turin from macro to micro. And we will do so asking ourselves, what if the metropolitan area of Turin is not actually the metropolitan area of Turin, but is more like a fabric pattern made of people, projects and stories?
So, I think we can start from a general point of view, and we can consider the metropolitan area as a quite complex project. Am I right?
Yes, the metropolitan area of Turin has 315 municipalities and includes quite a wide variety of differences from a morphological point of view. And this is reflected in the different distribution of activities and environments.
In fact, we can see this in the diversity of the agricultural area, but of course there is also the urban area, quite central and surrounded by spots of industries. And let's not forget about infrastructure.
Another noticeable element on these networks of town and activities is the energy consumption and production.
Absolutely, yes. The energy consumption is huge, but only 34% is produced locally. I guess this also reflects the pollution.
That's correct, mainly for ozone and PM10 levels.
But what about the people that live here?
2.2 million, quite crowded, right? But actually, the population is decreasing due to the natality rate. What counterbalance a bit this shift is the immigration rate.
Okay, and what about jobs and work in general?
Well, since the 70s, the employment rate is stable, apart from the secondary sector that is decreasing year by year. We will go there in a minute. But the most relevant information here is the local gender pay gap compared to the Italian one. This is definitely linked with the productive sector.
Yes, in fact, I think we can start with a quick overview of the first sector.
Yes, sure. So I can give you some data about it. The total agricultural area is 2,000 square kilometers, producing pumpkins, zucchinis, potatoes, lentils, peppers, but also apples, chestnut, peaches, and kiwi, and so many others.
Yes, many different possibilities.
Yes, there are so diverse options and so much potentiality in this sector. But anyway, what about the second sector?
It involves around 53,000 companies, mostly from ICT, automotive, and biotech sector. There are quite innovative ones. But as you mentioned before, since the 70s, decentralization and relocation policies put in crisis this sector while improving the third one. I want to point out that there are also 329 textile companies, and they all touch different fields of production and application. But unfortunately, the COVID crisis impacted this sector a lot.
Okay, now let's move on the third sector. It involves around 143,000 companies, but I'd like to focus more on the role of innovation here. Did you know that from this year, Turin became the new European pole of social innovation? And in addition to these, there are interesting challenges and economic support of European funds. And this is great for accelerators and startups. And even though we are 159th in the ranking in the European metro region for innovative aspect, I'm quite positive about that. Okay, so we had an overview of this context, but we already did a couple of focus on the textile industry and the innovative aspect of this metropolitan area. Now I'd like to do a focus more on the specifics, on a specific story actually. And for that, I want to invite Emily that can talk more about one company.
Hello everyone, today I'm here to do a zoom in the industrial area of Moncalieri. In particular, I'd like to talk about an interesting company called Dual Sanitary that operates in the health and well-being area, especially with textile medical devices. You have to know that this company was born in 1949 as a small retail store for Dr. Gibaud. But with time, it became a well-structured company that produced mainly medical devices in textile. Some interesting points about the history of the company are their advertising campaign with Carosello and the collaboration with Armando Testa, but also their ability in innovation with the digitalization of the company that starting in the early 2000s, the ADI index in 2018 for one of their production, and since last year they started producing face masks, anticipating the requests that follow. So basically the well-known balance between tradition and innovation. The president is Franca Audizio, which is also the daughter of the founder. She strongly believes in the fact that our actions are political actions. In fact, she was also the president of AIDA, which is an association with the aim to give value to female entrepreneurs.
So this should serve as an example of the unbalanced gender situation that we saw in Turin. I know that since 2010, there are companies and organizations that reported virtuous practices of CSR in Piedmont. Some are more in the social aspect and others in the circular economy. But tell me more about the company.
So this company included 78 employees and different external collaborators and stockists in the area of Turin and Cuneo. Let's talk quickly about the business model of the company. The main suppliers come from northwest Italy, meanwhile they have a national market of sales. They achieve an average turnover of 19,500 million euros per year. The main expenses go to the materials in the production, but important attention should be given to the external services.
Okay, before continuing with the analysis of the company, I would suggest a short break, just 30 seconds.
Questa è la vostra guardia del corpo, Gibaud. Vi mantiene sempre in forma, liberi nei movimenti, padroni di godere del vostro sport preferito.
I dolori che derivano da lunghe e estenuanti ore al volante,
da posizione obbligata,
da sforzi fisici,
trovano rimedio nella cintura elastica in lana del dottor Gibaud. Gibaud, in ogni punto del vostro corpo, previene, combatte, elimina il dolore. Gibaud, la vostra guardia del corpo.
Well, that was a nice jump back in the past, right? But we're back, and please, Emily, continue.
Thanks. So, going more in depth in their production, the 4 brands that they manage are Dr. Gibaud, Equipe, Dualsan, and G-All. Some of the projects are done on-site, some others are assembled there or by stockists, and others are just shipped from there.
And do you know in particular why they're doing their productive center?
Yeah, they have acquired the new automatic cutting machine that made their job easier lately. Meanwhile, the sewing process is mainly manual. The fabrics and the semi-finished components are the first inputs. Meanwhile, the textile is cut following a pattern, a paper pattern, and then sewn together to create the product. And then some specific components can be added in the second moment. Then the stocks are checked, sometimes also piece by piece. After that, they are placed in their packaging, which, by the way, doesn't involve plastic or paper anymore, as all the information are directly on it. From the stocking area, the orders are prepared and finally shipped to the client.
So from what I got, they don't have a huge variety of waste.
Exactly. They are mainly fabric scraps and paper from the production processes. And they manage them thanks to an external company that brings them to waste-to-energy plant.
Yes, because I know that textile is considered as a special waste in the metropolitan area of Turin, and it is a pity as these products might be recovered somehow. Also because the total chain of textile production is very impactful, and that's why Bastien is going to tell us something about it.
Yeah, hello everyone. So today I'm here to give you an ecological overview of what it means to produce fabrics nowadays. The textile industry involves $1 trillion worldwide every year and around 35 million people. This might look like a positive global market, but it has some downsides. At first, it creates clusterizations of specific goods in these sectors, impacting also on social aspects related to local cultures and heritage. In addition to so, it creates a strong social and economic dependency of the sectors and some inevitable outputs impacting the regulating systems, affecting the air, the climate due to the excessive consumptions and pollutions, and of course the water treatment mainly from the dyeing process. All this contributes with the import and export of soil consumptions to affect the supporting ecosystems.
Thank you very much everyone. We're close to the end of our talk, but before leaving, I'd like to conclude with consideration about what we learned today. First, never take for granted the past. It can be very useful for future projects. Look, for example, at Duas and Italy's history and what they become now. Then, every action counts. They are political statement for the context in which we're living. From the bigger European actions to smaller local CSRs in Turin, everything counts. And lastly, give value to what it might look that hasn't. Everything tells stories about people. Let's start giving them value. Thank you, everyone.
Silvia, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. That is an example of what the complexity means and managing the holistic diagnosis. The second step is a convergent phase. So from this big picture of the state of the art, we should understand what are our main challenges that will become, some of them, our leverage point to change the system, and understanding if those challenges are related to the system itself or are generated by other influences and so on. So we should go in deep understanding what the challenges are, why they are, and also start looking for possible opportunities that a territory or a company can have. So following the same example of Duels and Italy, we map the different challenges that we can have in territories, in a specific territory, and in the company, in that case, Duels and Italy. And for each of them, we find different opportunities that we can develop. And we support those opportunities with case studies, literature review, experiences that may be also in other parts of the world happen in order to understand if we can make some innovation in that sense and find new way to use these challenges as a leverage point. So we organize the challenges and the solutions through different map, understanding what can be the different strategies that we can follow for our project. So the next step is the project itself, how from a series of different elements, different solutions, we can design a complexity and design a system that really embrace the complexity and have an impact and can be a shift for a radical shift for the current state of the art. So we use a tool to select all those opportunities. That is a selection matrix. We set a series of criteria that comes from the systemic design pillar, and we add also other criteria that comes from the holistic diagnosis, again, the interaction and the iterative way to use this method that is absolutely not linear. So we set a series of criteria that help us with the lesson learned from the holistic diagnosis, so we can evaluate the single solution if they fit well for the company, for the context, and for the specific aspect of those territory, because we are acting locally. With this selection matrix, we can understand what are the final system and define the roadmap. So understanding if we need new actors, if we need new companies to involve, or association or other actors in general to make the system real. And maybe we also redefine the boundary. The meaning of defining the roadmap is to understanding what will happen to our state of the art that we define with the holistic diagnosis. What happens if we implement those solutions together or in a different time frame? So that is the system defined for dual sanitary, that of course have implication on the company and on the territory. So we define new actors in yellow, orange, and the relation that they can have with the blue one, that is our main company that we work with. But it is not the really last step, because we want to understand what is the benefit that we generate with this new system. So we try to have some quantification of the outcomes that can be related to the context or to the single value chain. And we try to quantify somehow. That is not easy, but I think that is strongly necessary, because yes, of course, we are not in a reactive way to think, but we should understand how we can monitor the improvement of the system. And of course, take into account also all the qualitative aspects, so the possible impact that we can have, and understand the time frame that we have and the scales. So certain action and certain impact, we can already see them in the short term, in the medium term, or in the long term. And what is the impact, how the impact can be can be broad or very focused. So at micro level, maybe just the company, or at meso level, the surrounding, the neighborhood, or the macro level, maybe at regional level, what can be the real valorization of a certain context. So the outcomes are try to quantify the results. So can be the reduction of waste or of emission, have a shorter supply chain, increase the revenue. So in that sense, and the impacts are more qualitative and try to envision in the future. So could be something related to the resilience of the value chain, or strengthening the relation among the stakeholder, and so on. So that is the video where you can see the final results with also the impact on the company and on the territory. But I don't want to spoiler you because the time is running, and this video lasts 13 minutes. So I know that online there is also one of my assistants, that is Wenlu. Thank you for attending. So I asked her if he can put in the chat the link of the video on YouTube. So maybe later on you can see what was the new project for the company and the impact that it can have, not only for the company, but also for the territory. So just to conclude, I want to introduce our lab. That is a picture. She is Wenlu. That is a picture of us exactly 1 year ago. So we increased a little bit the team. We have 2 new ladies in the team. And yeah, I founded it last year, and we work with the systemic design applied in different sector and with different value chain. So we can apply the systemic design on companies, as the example that I have shown you now, but also with the territories. For example, now I'm not in Italy, I'm in Hungary, in Budapest, because we won an Interreg Europe project about sustainable tourism. And we are coordinating it with different regions around Europe for the territory valorization through the systemic design methodology. So it is strictly related also to the policy. So we are working with, for example, in that project, with the managing authority that are in charge of delivering the policy for the different region. So our CIS lab is organized in 3 main sectors. So one is that are also at different level of complexity. So we can work for the territorial enhancement. We can work with the company for industrial innovation, like the example that I did for Dual San Italy, or directly on sustainable product. Let's show you just one short example for each of them, so you can understand what I mean with these 3 sectors. The sustainable product, when we are working on the sustainable product, so maybe I answer with this example also to a question on Slido about what are the real needs of people. So when we are working with the single product, we try to understand what is our goal. So for example, that is a patented device that make all the standard water bottle smart. That is patented for a series of reasons, but it is I was surprised that no one was thinking about that device, but yeah, it is pretty new. So we start to think about the pollution of the sea. And then we realized that one of the most polluted element that we have is the plastic. So we try to find a way to make the people more aware of it and try to facilitate the use of not plastic bottle, for example. So we designed this device that helped people to calculate what is the benefit that you generate drinking the tap water instead of plastic water in the plastic bottle. And of course, we use, it can stand alone, this device, or you can connect it with an app that help you to find also public spaces where you can find a place to have high quality water to fill in your bottle, and yeah, a gamification of it. I cannot explain it too much because I'm out of the time. So another example about the industrial innovation that is a project done with two value chain, one related to the wine production and the other one with the rice production. And together we make a lot of different new products and new way to reduce the waste from both value chain and make a connection of those two value chain. And the last example about the territorial enhancement was a past project that we want, again, in Interreg European project that involved 5 regions in Europe, plus the Netherlands and Scotland. And we did a lot of exchange of experiences among Europe in order to deliver regional action plan that can drive the circular economy among the companies in those in those 5 regions involved: the Piedmont region in Italy, Nouvelle Aquitaine in France, Basque country in Spain, Slovenia, all the Slovenia, and then Romania, the northeast region of Romania. We publish 3 free books on the project that you can find on the website of the project. Please, if you can, share the link also of this project. And of course, for all those projects are collected in our website, that is the CISLab website, and you can find us also on social media. We have the Instagram and the LinkedIn channel. So sorry for being so long, but I can stand here for questions if you have. And thank you for listening.
So we have 4 questions on the Slido. We have 3 are anonymous, so I guess that means that these people don't want to ask this directly, so I can go one by one. So the first one says, is it possible to give a rough overview of how systems thinking and complexity theory differ from design thinking?
From the, sorry?
Design thinking.
Okay.
So like how this kind of way of working that you have differs from what we will do with design thinking or service design, I guess, as well.
Yes, I think that there are not explicit differences, but let me say an evolution. System thinking is a way of thinking that help to have different point of view in relation to the problems, the context, how to face those problems, and let me say, help also other people that are not designer to understand what means, but then to make a complex design system, let me say, you need to be a designer. So yeah, it is not only a way to think that everyone can do, but you need a methodology to develop a complex system, because you need certain steps and certain methods and tools to make an evolution through just a thinking in a certain way, then doing it and try to practice it in reality and with a feasible plan on doing it.
Cool, thank you. So we do have another couple of questions there. One you probably covered with some of the examples that you gave, but one of the questions was just like give a few examples in reality, and I think you gave for the anonymous person that put the question in the slide, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask anything more. Otherwise, we can just step to the next one. Okay, I think you just gave a couple of ones at the end of the talk, so it was good. Another question is, whereabouts are you doing your system thinking at the moment? Did you say it was in Hungary? Unfortunately, my chat just disappeared because my Wi-Fi just disconnected, so I can't really see the actual.
Yes, Christian is asking who are you working with? I'm working with a region that I cannot pronounce it still very well. So I was in Brescia before, so with the region close to Budapest. Then I will write you the right name. I cannot pronounce it, but it is the region where Brescia is.
Good, thank you for giving us a context. There is another question in the Slido, and is, how would you apply the pillars of systemic design to services and intangible design, for example, policy making?
Yes, thank you for the question. That is the reason why we put it, the part related to the policy design and the territorial enhancement as the more complex part, because yes, you work on a different level. So you should envision how the policy can affect the services or also the intangible part. So, for example, we to make it, because there are two aspects to consider for immaterial part of our work. That is, one, the policy design. So when you are working in policy, of course, the pillars should be a driver to understand how we can facilitate that way of thinking at policy level. And the other part and the other issue is related to the fact that you can work with companies that are doing services instead of products like Dual Sanitary that is doing a physical product. So for that, we work more on the information flow. So what I mentioned is that we manage 3 flows: the material, the energy, and the information. So often with the service design and many other services, we are working on information and the data that often are, again, for example, the pillar with the information on services. In the data, we have often output. We collect a huge amount of data, and often we use just a small part of it, and we lose a lot of other data. So how we can use those to maybe develop other businesses, other services for other companies. So it is right that one company can be focused on one specific sector and to solve a specific problem like mobility, but maybe collecting all the information related to the mobility, you can share that data also with others that can use for other purposes.
Thank you. That's extremely interesting to me, especially because I actually did study at Politecnico di Torino. That's why, and how I met Silvia quite a few years ago. And now I'm working more in the service design sphere in arena, and I can actually see the parallel from the more tangible and circular economy and this kind of complexity, but in a more like tangible way, instead of applying it to what it is, more like the data, as you said, or the kind of like complexity at a more intangible kind of level. So it's really interesting. There is another question in the Slido by Alexander. Do you recommend any books or works to improve our knowledge on this topic? And thank you very much if you want to send them here in the notes and in the chat. Otherwise, we can actually collect these and send it as we normally do, our thank you email, and we can just circulate it. But if you have like some burning ones that you want to share now, please do.
Sorry, I missed the question because I was answering to Christian about the region where we are working with. So you asked me about the books or the sources.
Yeah, other works or ways to improve our knowledge in on this topic, really, about complexity.
Yeah. There are some books. One of the last book published is from Birger Samuelson about complexity and how visualizing the complexity can be helpful to design also the complex system. So yeah, I can suggest this book, Visualizing Complexity, I think the title is, from Birger Samuelson. Then a book from Peter Jones, that the name is Systemic Design, Theory and Practice, and Practices, edited by Springer. It is a good book because you have also many case studies about, so for the practitioners, I think it is a very good book. yeah, then I can maybe send you some references. Also, I was thinking to some open access, because both of these books are to buy them. I will look for some open access references, so maybe a little bit easier to have a look to them.